into a pay what you want platform. Part of that is because me and Lucy want to be able to carry on with Club Soda and to be able to fund the work that goes into it. These webinars, for example, take me nearly a day in total to do, in terms of researching the content, delivering it, editing the videos, getting the videos out. What we don't want to do is put it behind a paywall so only some people can see it and some people can't. We don't want to put the Facebook group behind a paywall. We don't want to put our blogs and our webinar and our emails behind a paywall. So we felt that the best way to do that within an ethos that me and Lucy believe in was to open this up to a pay what you want. So it means that if on the odd occasion you feel a little bit of love in your heart and you want to give us a donation, you can. And so if you go onto the Club Soda website, you will see now that in the shop there's an ability for you to do monthly donations, or if you just found one webinar particularly useful, then you can just do a one-off payment. We don't really mind, it's up to you. That's why it's a pay what you want platform, but that's where we're going in the future. So that shouldn't really change very much for you, but hopefully for those of you who feel that you get benefit out of this, or you want to pay it forward to other people, then you can do that, and you'll see there's a one-off donation button there. So I really appreciate any feedback that you guys have got about this. This is our first experiment in doing that. So I'm now going to take you back to me, and I'm going to check that you can still hear me, which you should be able to. Right. Let me just do that. Right. So thank you all for indulging us in that. We will be putting reminders over the next few months about pay what you want, but it really is about paying what you want. So up to you. Right, you can see I'm in the office. We've been here all day. I'm living here. I even got my cardo delivery for the week here because I'm eating every meal here. Oh my God, why am I doing this festival? I do not know. Anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about today was the pink fluffy cloud feeling. And I will tell you that probably the happiest I have ever been in my life is in the 12 months after I gave up drinking. I had got to a really comfortable place to how I felt about not drinking anymore. Oh, I shouldn't keep zooming around on this chair. I'd got to a really comfortable place about where I was with not drinking. I started dating and I met Lucy. It was summer. Suddenly I noticed I'd lost weight. It often takes me a while to see that, and I'd noticed I'd lost weight, and lots of really good things were happening at work. I went on news night. I did a speech in St Paul's Cathedral, as you do, with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and it was quite exciting. I had this amazing feeling of euphoria, but also I felt that I had had like a million mini epiphanies. It was really weird. Every day I felt I was learning something new about myself, mainly around my emotions. And they weren't all big revelations. They were all like mini epiphanies. I suddenly realised, that I wasn't missing drinking anymore. And I suddenly realised how much clearer I felt. And I suddenly realised that I was feeling things, and I suddenly, realised that dating without drinking was great, and these sort of things piled up. And it would be really easy to want life to always be like that, and to think, right, this is it, it's amazing, I've got this licked. But actually, we all know that doesn't always last forever. Now, actually, the phrase pink fluffy cloud comes from AA, but I actually think it does it justice. Maybe there could be a unicorn in there somewhere. I feel there could be a unicorn to just make it that little bit better. But I actually think it's a really good description of that feeling, because it is quite euphoric. They are emotional highs that get your adrenaline going and your emotion going. And that's in part because I think some of our emotions have been suppressed by alcohol. I mean, lacking in energy, when you don't have energy to enjoy things, when you don't have energy to participate fully, when you can't get your brain to really engage with the situation that's going on, if you're dulling your emotions continually, then it really does make sense that when you stop using alcohol and all of those things stop, that you will suddenly feel emotions more intensely. And we know that because that's about living life in HD, and we know that the sad things can feel very sad, but actually also the happy things can feel very, very happy, really hyper and really high. And those are really weird because you're suddenly feeling this rush of amazingness. And I literally, I can say that that year after I gave up drinking, I felt giddy all of that summer of excitement. So many things were happening. And it really did feel like somebody had just like put a drug into my brain, and I was suddenly feeling these intense feelings of happiness. Um, and some of that can last, it can start sooner than 12 months, it can last longer than probably the 6 months that it did for me, or it could go on for years. But there are several dangers that come with that euphoric feeling. One is that you might get complacent and ambivalent and go, I've got this licked, I can go back to how I was, I can maybe start moderating. Or the other is that you take a dip after all of that intense feeling, and then you begin to feel that it hasn't been worth it. You're not feeling as happy as you were. What's gone wrong? And I suspect that if some of you have done any weight loss or any other programs around mental health, or even done some intense periods of sport where you might have done some competition, some of those feelings may come. And I guess that also happens with people with weddings. That's completely outside my sphere of reference, but that's why they call it the honeymoon feeling, that intense emotional feeling where your emotions are heightened. So it's not unique to alcohol, but there are two things that can happen because alcohol is such an addictive substance, and that's that you can either get complacent or that you can begin to feel that it hasn't been worth it if that euphoric feeling goes away. So after, ooh, I'm hoping I'm still here. Let me just check. Okay, I think I'm still here. So I'm really interested in the fact that after just checking that I am going, because my computer is going a bit bonkers at the minute because it's processing so much video. I'm taking those little thumbs up as being that you can still hear me. I wanted to show you an amazing picture of me at the Olympics, but I've got the spinny wheel of death, which is why I wasn't sure if I was still going. But thank you, Janet. I actually, my euphoric feeling began after 6 months because I was volunteering on the Olympics, which was an amazing experience because I had, for the first 6 months of giving up, first 3 months of giving up drinking, slept a lot, drunk tons of water, went through a period of change. But I had this wonderful milestone. It was actually after 3 months. 6 months, my brain came back into gear. But after 3 months, I was volunteering on the Olympics. And there was something magical about having big events at certain milestones. And 3 months for me is certainly a milestone in terms of changing drinking. Because all of that, I hadn't realised how much energy I'd regained through drinking water, sleeping, taking alcohol out of my diet, until I got to the Olympics, and I was up at 6 a.m. every morning. I was in that Olympic park. I was driving athletes around. It was absolutely, totally amazing. And that's, I guess, where the start of my pink fluffy cloud probably came. And it really did last quite a while. What was most interesting is when my mood suddenly dipped again. So my mood probably dipped around December, January 2014. So 18 months after giving up drinking. And that's when my job changed and I tried to set up Club Soda. So I sold I've sold everything I owned actually. I gave up my job, and then I ended up having a chest infection, and then I ended up in a bit of a housing crisis because my landlord was selling my house, and suddenly, how can you keep a euphoric feeling when you had happy things happening to you for a long while, and then suddenly you have some very sad things happening, or some hard things, or some challenging things that actually change the mix even more. And it's really tempting to then want to go back and drink and say, well, I was doing really well, and but now I'm not feeling as happy as I was. And suddenly your brain snaps back to wanting to react to the situation you're in using the thing that it remembered. And I remember thinking in December 2014 and January 2015, oh my God, I I want to drink. It was the period where I wanted to drink most of all in the whole of the time that I had been sober. And it was a shock to me because I thought I had got this licked. It was a real shock to me that my brain was going back to old familiar. It made me realise that I hadn't unpicked totally every single bit of that hard wiring around changing my drinking. And it would have been really easy for me to have let my internal monologue go and say, you know what, Laura, it hasn't been worth it. Look, you're still in dire straits. Things aren't as brilliant as they were. You're not as happy as you were. How about doing something to try and get that little bit of giddiness back that you had in the summer? But of course, the giddiness in the summer, while it was, partly as a result of having given up drinking, it was mostly a result because nothing terrible was happening either. And all that was happening now was something quite normal for all of us, which was that I had some challenges to deal with, and that naturally dips your mood. And like I said last week, that's a normal thing to happen, that you have to deal with normal emotions, challenges, difficult situations. So the important thing for me was not to go, oh no, I need to keep feeling like I was feeling. I need to keep chasing that. I need to either do something else, like take drugs, or I need to start drinking again because I need to have that euphoric feeling. You have to accept that you can't chase that pink cloud and jump back on it. That it's one of those things that will come and go throughout your life, but it won't maintain. And that it's not something you should recognise, that that's just another change, another part of the process, and isn't something that should shove you back into your old behaviours and your old changes. Andrina, I don't know how I stayed alcohol free, apart from, despite the fact that the pink fluffy cloud wasn't there anymore, I was still gaining. My gains were still greater than my losses. If I really looked at it, I had gained so much, and I was very much focused on what I wanted to achieve in the future. And that future did not include in any way going back to drinking. I felt low, I felt sad, I needed to lean on friends a bit more, but there was no way. My gains were still greater than that mood I felt in that point in time. And I guess for me, I made, subconsciously, I made a balancing judgment that I didn't want to go back to where I was. So this was just a thing, and a normal thing that people go through. And also it did combine with the time of setting up Club Soda. It'd be really daft at the time of setting up Club Soda to go, oh, well, that's it. My only response to the stress of setting up Club Soda, and the stress ever since, to be quite frank, is to drink, because that would have actually been even worse. I had made a decision about giving up my job to do something that I thought was really important, and then to actually do a piece of behaviour that was against what I was doing. Now, you may not all want to set up a Club Soda, but what I've noticed from the admins in the group and some of the long-term maintainers in the group, that being part of Club Soda, supporting Club Soda, supporting all of you in your earlier parts of your journey, is a bit similar to setting up Club Soda. What you've done is you've committed yourself to supporting other people. You've actually done is committed yourselves to being a bit of a role model, and therefore you would feel you were letting other people down if you drank. And so you may have connections that you've made, friends that you've made, people in the group in Club Soda. You may want to step up and take a responsibility within Club Soda in order to help maintain your ongoing goal. But actually the truth is that's helpful. And I guess for me, the reason why I didn't go back and drink is because I had made this commitment to help share this change with other people. And the admins and others of you in the group who are organising events and socials are doing the same in a slightly different way. So I guess in some ways you need to just stop yourself when your mood dips and say, well, actually, it's just my mood dipping. This isn't forever. I've got some challenges ahead of myself. But do I really want to undo all the hard work I've made from changing my drinking? Look how happy I can be with less alcohol in my system. Do I really want to go back to all of that? You know, what's the future that I want ahead of myself? That balanced decision sheet that's in the file section of the Facebook group is actually really useful to do at a number of points in time, And that one of those points in time can be when you've had that pink fluffy cloud feeling, and then you've normalized that feeling of being sober, and you begin to think, okay, maybe I could change this. Maybe I want to change this because I want to keep that pink fluffy cloud feeling. Or you may get complacent, which I haven't touched on yet. But one thing that's really, really clear to me now as time goes on, so this Facebook group's been going for over 2 years now, and I've watched you all, right? So, 2,500 of you, it's not a bad sample size for some sort of statistical knowledge. But those of you that have set going alcohol free as your goal, and you get to 1 week for some people, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and then you start going, well, maybe I think I can moderate, I can tell you that's not long enough, and that you may want to give yourself a bit longer, and you may want to go and do the decision balance sheet at that point in time when that, oh, well, maybe I'm okay now, comes in, and ask yourself truly that every time you have a stressful situation, have you unpicked alcohol from that situation? You're unpicking, what could be decades of hard wiring around alcohol being your response to everything. Have you, in the time that you've not drunk, experienced every single high and low that you've had in your life and dealt with them without alcohol? Probably not. And so the thing about the pink fluffy cloud is it gives you this sense and feeling of security, that somehow you're so happy that clearly being able to moderate is a possibility at this point in time. And actually, that's where you get into a false sense of security. And you go, yeah, I'm going to try drinking again. And actually what you need to do is go back to a process and say, okay, what would be the implications if I start drinking again? Could this dip my mood? Could this only be, am I trying to artificially stimulate to keep this sense of happiness? Would alcohol really do that? Bearing in mind I might feel hungover. Will I feel disappointed with myself? If I start drinking again, what could I potentially lose? And what is it that I might not gain that I had planned for myself in the future if I'd kept going for longer? So, that sense of complacency that comes with the pink fluffy cloud is also dangerous. So it's dangerous for two reasons. One is you want to keep the feeling, and the second is you may also think that you are that you have got it licked. And then when your mood dips whenever it is after you've changed your drinking, then that's also a dangerous time where you want to try and get that mood back, or you feel you need to drink in order to deal with it, or you begin to romanticize alcohol again and go, well, actually it wasn't that bad, because that's 3-4 months ago now, and you've forgotten a little bit about how it really was. So it can be a really deceiving time, both in terms of just in terms of feeding into that inner critic in you, telling you that things are all okay, or because you're feeling low today, clearly giving up drinking hasn't worked, so you should just go back and hit the bottle, or telling you that a situation's so bad that you need to drink. So how do you need to cope with it? Well, the truth is it's a lot of the advice that I gave you last week, which is you have to accept that this is normal. It's not unusual. But don't let the pink fluffy cloud deceive you. Recognise it for what it is. And if at any point you're contemplating drinking again, or relaxing your rules on moderation, or any of those things, and you need to go back to a decision balance sheet and say, what is it that I will lose if I start drinking again? What is it that I hated about drinking that will come back? What is it that I want to achieve in the future that carrying on drinking may stop me doing? Is it really that bad just because I'm feeling a bit low today? The answer to all of those things is not drink, basically. The longer you can go, the stronger you will be. And like I said, even after 5 years, I still, sit in a small French house with my friends, and they're all drinking wine, and have this feeling that comes here in my gut, and think, oh, why can't I do this? And it doesn't last very long, because I realise it's just a feeling, it's not an order, and actually I will enjoy myself and to get myself something nice to drink and it will all be okay. So that doesn't go away. What happens is your strength to be able to respond to that feeling. And so if you've been in this euphoric period where you've been getting loads and loads of really wonderful epiphanies and lovely high feelings, then, you know, and you want to keep that, then actually drinking is neither going to keep it or make it come back. Right? Um, the other thing is to recognise that the emotional highs and lows are all about dealing with your emotions. And we've talked about the fact that as you are changing your drinking, you begin to feel life in high definition. And this is what it is really, these emotional highs and these emotional lows. And we often treat highs and lows as being different types of emotion, but they actually need some of the same treatment. They need to be recognised for what they are. You need to say, well, actually, I'm feeling really hyper happy at the minute because actually I'm not stressed. I feel loved. I've got some nice things going on. There are no traumas in my life. And recognising what it is that's making you feel super happy is really important. Which is also the same for if you're feeling lower and you're coming off your cloud of euphoria, and say, well, actually, this is what normal life is like. This is what change feels like when it begins to normalise. I need to work out what this emotion here that is present and where it's come from, and what might be some of the solutions. And some of those solutions might be some of the things that you think about when you're happy. Wow, I was happier last year because I felt loved. I was going to concerts. I wasn't very stressed. I've actually done that exercise myself. I've sat down and gone, what is it that was different about last year that made me feel giddy with excitement that's different from this year? And it is all about giving myself free time, treating myself well, getting reassurance from the person that I love, making new friendships, really important thing for me actually in keeping happy. And so I've started to work out how I can bring some of those things back. I don't think I'll be bringing them back for about 4 weeks though. Until then I'm going to work myself into the ground. But I absolutely know what action I need to take on the 14th of August to get me back into shape. Emotional shape. See? It's like exercising a muscle. Also, don't distrust your happy cloud feeling. Recognise it for what it is, but also accept that being happy is a really great thing. And that's okay too. Don't let it worry you too much. Remember where you started this journey. Remember your goals. Remember why you set them, and remember why you're here and why you're going through this process. Think about how you felt in the past, how you might feel in the future, rather than only being blinded by what's happening in the present. So, you know, if you're worried that this feeling of happiness won't last, how about planning some things into the near future that you can look forward to? And also remember that you can't always control your emotions. It's something that we always strive to do, but it's always not possible. So sometimes you just have to let them be. They don't have to control you. You know, I often think sometimes it's really easy to tell when people on the group have failed, not because they've said, I had a drink last night, I feel terrible, but because they react differently to people's posts who are doing well. They might be a little bit snipey, they might misread something, they might take exception to something that's been said. And that's not about what the person who's written it has written, it's about how we read it in the mood that we're currently in. And often, because of emotion we might be in, we react differently to people. And we have to accept that that's a feeling and emotion. We don't have to act upon it. We don't have to become a grumpy person because things are stressful. We don't have to have a drink because my mood's changed. These are all just feelings. You can just sit with them and recognise them for what they are. I've become a lot more aware that my mood really affects how I read things on the group, how I interpret things that UC might say, how I react to other people. Spend a lot of time apologising when I'm in a shit mood, I tell you. But that's okay, because I've accepted that I was in that mood. I can't change that now. That was in the past, and I've got to move forward into the future. And every time I do that, I learn about my mood, and I learn not to react so often to the mood that I'm in, whether that's hyper happy or a bit low or really low. You know, they're mine to not control, but to recognise and make sure I don't react inappropriately. So I think the other thing then to say finally is that's what the group is here for. So you can lean on the group and say, wow, I was really euphoric yesterday and I'm feeling a bit crappy today. Anyone else felt that? And that's what we're here for, because sharing that is a really important part of the process you're going through. Recognising that you're not alone, that it's not unique to you, that it's actually a very human trait and a human way to feel. And we can all share in that, and give some tips and advice on how others have dealt with it as well. Just because I deal with it in one way, it doesn't mean you all have to deal with it the same way. We've all got different coping mechanisms, and what works for one might work for another. One coping mechanism that none of us have available to us anymore is alcohol. Even if you're moderating as a drinker, drinking for emotions is probably the one thing that you need to stop in order to get to where you want to be. So that's a bit about that euphoric feeling and why you can get that real sense of highs and lows as you go through. I'm just going to have a little look through. Cool. And just check there wasn't any other questions. So I'm going to leave that there today. And I can't show you any more pretty pictures because I've got the spinny wheel of death. Don't know what that means. My computer is going a bit mental. You've now seen the space that we work in. Look. Oh, wait a minute. I need to go this way. It's a co-working space. It's going to be knocked down in a while, which is why we've got cheap office space here. And yes, we've been working all day on Pay What You Want and the festival. So if you like the webinar, then click on the Pay What You Want button. I will put it in the link afterwards. If you want to make a regular donation, do, so that I can keep doing these webinars. And I've got some really great people lined up to do some webinars over the next few months as well. And again, if any of you want to do a webinar, if any of you are ready to step up and say, actually, I don't mind sharing my story, sharing your top tips. It could just be, this is how I dealt with an evening out. Share any recipes you've got. That's perfect for a webinar. If you want to do a smoothie recipe on the website, you're welcome to do that. Set yourself up in the kitchen. You can do it. You can do it. Or even if you've got another skill, like some of you know about stress, you know about aromatherapy, you've taught about leadership, all of those sort of things. Don't underestimate the skills that you can share with this group. And I'd really like some of you to be able to do that in the future. So have a little think. And as I said before, sharing back with other people the skills that you've got or the things that you've learned is also a great way to help you maintain the goal that you've set yourself. So don't underestimate. All of these things are really important in the journey ahead. You know, there will be bumpy rides, but we're here all the way through. So don't forget to lean on us. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there, and thank you very much. Bye.